They want to pretend that the problem they have with us is that we're focusing on individual change and not institutional change, when the reality is they are only against factory farming and they do not support actual animal liberation, anti-speciesist work. Hi friends, Serena here. Welcome back to another video. And for those of you that are new to my channel, I've been vegan since birth and I teach people about veganism and help empower people to live as ethically and sustainably as possible in our extremely complicated world. I recently had a long interview / conversation with a fellow vegan YouTuber, Klein, and I've linked her channel below, but we had a full hour-long conversation about effective activism, covered a whole range of topics within that. But today's video here is a short clip of that where we discussed individual versus institutional and systemic change and which of those is really more effective or what we should be focusing on as vegan activists. So I really enjoyed this conversation. I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it and find something useful in it as well.
So I wanted to talk about the individual change versus system change. It's like this tug of war where people are like, we have to focus on system change, and then other people are just solely focusing on getting individuals to go vegan as if that's enough. And it's both. We need both. So did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely both. I mean, and I have some very interesting personal experiences with this going back to 2014. When I was in college, I did a lot of activism and I got a lot of pushback. It was very interesting to see things that I never predicted, but I would do I did some tabling and I did pay-per-views, showing people slaughter footage and stuff outside of my dining hall. And we, my little group of activists got absolutely attacked for this. And I remember this one particular conversation I had with someone. Mostly they were they wrote articles in the school newspaper. They criticized us on Facebook. It was just all over. But one person, told me the problem that we all have is that you're focusing on individual change, not systems change. And this was someone who was not vegan, but considers herself in alignment with it. So literally goes, I support veganism, just not when it's problematic. And I was like, okay, you literally kill animals on a small humane farm yourself. You don't support veganism. And so I asked her, because she was going on about how we were promoting individual change and it was extremely neoliberal and we're giving away vegan ice cream samples and milk comes from a grieving mother flyers. So it was try some, vegan ice cream and here's why you shouldn't support the dairy industry.
So problematic.
Right. Yeah. I'm you don't even know the things I could have done. This, if you are going to criticize me for this, you don't know what I could have done and the other plans I've had in my head. I could have disrupted the dining hall. So many things I thought about doing. And so when she said, she's you really need to work with us to promote institutional change. I looked at her and I was like, what institutional change do you want me supporting here on campus? She goes, well, getting free range pig meat from the local. And I'm like, that is not in support of anti-speciesist or vegan advocacy. We have, different goals. And she goes, no, I support veganism. I just don't like the way you're doing it. And I was like, what way should I be doing it? I was like, the institutional change that I could see happening would be, how about we get meat banned on campus? And I was like, somehow I don't think you would like that institutional change as much as individual change. And that's the only institutional change here on campus that I can really think of that really would be in line with anti-speciesist work and not welfare, anti-factory farming stuff. And we went round in circles and finally she goes, I guess we just have different ideas about what veganism is. And we just don't agree on the end goal. And I'm like, shocker. Wow, it took us that. I was telling you that from the beginning of this conversation and you just wanted to go on about my methods. And I feel that is a lot of what is actually going on, especially when it's coming from non-vegan leftists. They want to pretend that the problem they have with us is that we're focusing on individual change and not institutional change, when the reality is they are only against factory farming and they do not support actual animal liberation, anti-speciesist work. And so that's a nice deflection that allows them to feel better about continuing to eat animals or whatever their non-action is. And so, yeah, it's like, trust me, I support institutional change. And I think actual policies like institutional change needs to happen. Subsidies. We need to stop subsidizing meat and dairy. We need to address the farm bill. We need to have massive, but massive boycotts, like everyone boycott this company or this, all of that. But it's I don't know how you think things are going to change if you're just going to sit here saying we need to call out institutions or we need to call out capitalism and then be unwilling to change anything in your life yourself.
Right. It was, that was brilliant. And I was actually reading this blog article earlier this morning, and one of the quotes was, it was from activism.com. They have a guide for how to be an effective activist. But it says behavior change campaigns are often insufficient to completely eradicate social issues. But eradicating social issues is often difficult without large numbers of people making behavior changes. And so it's where are we at right now in the vegan movement? We still have very small numbers. So education and anti-speciesist work is super important if we're going to get enough people on board with fighting for system change. So it's like you said, her idea of system change was different from yours. So the system change we need individuals to wake up and fight for that system change.
And
I don't know.
And I think especially when it comes to climate stuff, which is where a lot of these conversations I feel are happening, this is a point I don't see many people making and it drives me nuts, but there is a huge difference between wanting individuals to change their light bulbs out and wanting individuals to go vegan. Because wanting individuals to change their light bulbs, is it's unfairly sort of putting the pressure on individuals when the problem is the electric grid, the power grid, and the fact that we would prefer power companies and governments to shift to renewables instead of fossil fuels. But where is the comparable when we're talking about people not eating animals? You cannot continue to eat animals. There is no system change on the other end that can make eating animals okay without you being willing to not eat animals. So it's whereas individuals shouldn't have to change their light bulbs. We should be able to just change things on the other side, that institutional change. But I think veganism and eating animals is in such a different category than every other issue we're talking about, because it's something that people are attached to and addicted to and that want to keep doing it. And if everyone wants to keep eating meat, there is no and I think that's again a myth. People think, oh, if we get rid of factory farming, we can have regenerative, humane, they think they can keep eating animal products. And if we focus on the institutions, we can just hold these corporations accountable and make their farming and harvesting practices better. When the reality is we cannot have the level of people that are currently eating meat continue to eat meat and have it be sustainable in any way. And so I think that a lot of the claims and arguments they're making about institutional change versus individual change make a lot more sense on other issues. And veganism is different because people's behaviors around it are different. And you have to be willing to, at some point, whether it starts with individual change or whether we have institutional change that creates that individual change, at some point, you're going to have to be willing to not eat animals for things to change.
Yeah.
So,
and, yeah. I mean, even with the environmental stuff, I think that sometimes it's also super important to get people to make changes because they always throw out that quote, like 100 companies are responsible for this 70% of emissions. It's like, okay, yes, but like, where's all this energy going? Like, what are we using this energy for? And then you realize it's like our overconsumption of resources, which is like everything we consume. So like, I think it's also important to make individual changes and stop buying so much, like shop secondhand. And, you know, we do need to change the infrastructure because it's like incredibly difficult. Or driving cars would be another example. Like, I have to drive to work because Denver has incredibly poor public transportation. Mm-hmm. Or if I were to use public transportation, it would take hours out of my day. So it's like, that shouldn't be on me, you know, like that needs to be, the system needs to change to make it easier. But with veganism and with like these other things, it's so easy. Like it's such a simple thing that you do. You just like stop buying this and buy this instead, or just like stop shopping at like fast fashion retail stores. Like it's not that hard.
Yeah, no, it's just like, I mean, and that's why I personally like to focus on individual change. And again, where I think like we need everybody doing different stuff. And I absolutely think institutional change is important, but from my personal experience, I don't think we're going to be able to achieve the institutional changes that I want to see unless and until more people agree with our end goal and agree with animal liberation. And you do that by reaching individual people and changing their mindset and helping them go vegan. So like, that's just personally what I'm drawn to do, because I just meet and see so many people that it's like, they would fight against any institutional change that I want right now. They would be mad if meat prices go up or they can't get their cheap meat and their cheap burger because of subsidies ending, or, you know.
I would say that's problematic and classist.
Yeah. So it's just like, I want to change individual mindsets personally, but I think we need that institutional change. I will support any legislative action that is in the direction that I want. You know, absolutely. And we need both, but I just think so much of the non-vegan leftist and environmentalist communities that bring that up are really just using it as a deflection so that they personally don't have to change their habits. And like, blaming the 100 corporations, blaming that's like, okay, do you actually have a plan? Like, what are we doing to target these 100 corporations? Like, boycotts kind of work sometimes, you know, like that's one way to get corporations to change. But just talking about, don't blame the individual, blame the corporation. And then like, okay, what is blaming the corporation doing?
Right.
Where's that going? How are we fixing things? Like, at least I'm taking an action to try and do something.
Right.
And that's things get trying to turn them into blaming the individual, when really I'm just saying, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just asking, what can you as an individual do to make a difference? If you're spending all your time like like lobbying and working for legislative change, great. But like, most people are just doing nothing. And so at least not contributing to the problem, again, would be a helpful something.
Right.